Noted American author and statesman Frederick Douglass worked tirelessly as an abolitionist, then an anti-lynching advocate, and an advocate for equal rights. You can't talk about the history of civil rights in this country without talking about Frederick Douglass. He struggled long and hard before Dr. King and the civil rights movement. Here's a man who was fighting for the basic dignity of all people in this country before it was popular. Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey was born into slavery in eastern Maryland around 1818. Frederick Douglass was one of almost 4 million slaves who lived in the antebellum South. Slavery was a violent system of repression that forced African Americans to work for white owners for no pay and with no control of their lives. This system of owning human beings and their labor took away slaves' rights, their dignity, and identity by reducing people to the status of property. He barely knew his mother because they had been forcibly separated and she lived on a different plantation, and then she died when he was just a young child. It took incredible courage for slaves to find ways to win their freedom, self-worth, and individual identity. Certainly, during Douglass's time, it was absolutely forbidden for black people to learn to read or write. If they could write their own passage, which would allow them to move from place to place. Obviously, that wouldn't work. However, Frederick Douglass got a taste of learning from his owner's wife, who taught him a little before her husband forbade teaching him more. However, by then, his thirst for learning grew so strong that he endeavored to learn on his own by any means necessary. He had to learn in secret, sometimes even tricking people into teaching him. This education taught him the importance of liberty. Frederick Douglass successfully achieved his liberty after several attempts and after his spirits were temporarily broken by the savage slave breaker Covey. And he dedicated his freedom to lifting all slaves out of bondage. And what is little known is that his wife was a very key figure in helping him to escape from slavery. His anti-slavery lectures gained attention because he was an intelligent and powerful speaker. In 1845, Douglass wrote and published his first of 3 autobiographies entitled Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. And although the book was a U.S. bestseller, Douglass had to flee and live in Europe for 2 years to evade recapture. He ultimately purchased his freedom in 1847. He also owned 2 newspapers in addition to the autobiographies that he wrote. In addition to his abolitionist work, he also supported women's suffrage. Douglass became the only African American to attend the first Women's Rights Convention in 1848, and by 1861, Douglass was famous around the world. He advised both President Lincoln and President Johnson on the welfare of African Americans. By any measure, Frederick Douglass was a real American hero. He was a public intellectual, statesman, and activist, and in his life, his political commitment to dedicating himself for human rights, and not just for civil rights or to end slavery. He also became president of a bank. Ironically, he was a U.S. Marshal, then U.S. Ambassador to the Dominican Republic, and in 1872 became the first African American to appear on a presidential ballot when he was nominated as vice president. Frederick Douglass spoke at Westchester University of Pennsylvania on February 1st, just weeks before he passed away on February 20th, 1895. We are proud today to celebrate Frederick Douglass Day. We are proud to celebrate Frederick Douglass with the PASSHE Frederick Douglass Institutes. We have many programs dedicated to supporting education for our students in the Commonwealth. We have programs to bring in scholars, people who are in graduate programs so that they can work in PASSHE institutions. We support undergraduates with different programs, colloquia, opportunities to present and debate, and scholarships. And there are many other activities going on with the Frederick Douglass Institute at your institution. So we look forward to seeing you participate in the Frederick Douglass Institutes. Thank you.